This podcast is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Visit Progressive.com to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states or situations.
Get the Angel Reese special at McDonald's now. Let's break it down. My favorite barbecue sauce, American cheese, crispy bacon, pickles, onions, and a sesame seed bun, of course. And don't forget the fries and a drink. Sound good? Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
At participating restaurants for a limited time.
So, Romeo, how are you feeling about your American passport these days?
Well, with any luck, I won't have to use it for a while.
Romeo Kokriatski is a journalist and a podcaster. He grew up in New York, but he lives in Kyiv now. He's Ukrainian.
I mean, I'm not going to throw it out. Well, not yet, at least. I still have a little bit of hope.
Over the last week, as I watched the U.S.-Ukraine relationship fall apart in front of an audience of millions, I really wanted to get Romeo on the line. The last time we talked, you were going back and forth from bomb shelters. I don't know if that's still the case.
Well, no. Everyone's gotten used to the bombs. A few weeks ago, there was a drone strike not far from my apartment that I got to watch burn. So that was fun.
Like everyone else, Romeo was tuned in on Friday as President Volodymyr Zelensky traveled to the White House to finalize a mineral rights deal with Donald Trump. This was a deal that was supposed to ensure American support for Ukraine. Zelensky had proposed the deal himself. The funny thing is, Romeo was never really convinced it was going to get signed.
The latest kind of draft that we have access to shows nothing in there for the U.S. It is, so the U.S. would put in money there, and then that money would be used to reinvest in Ukraine. I really don't see how the United States, and specifically Donald Trump, benefit from this. Like, it's an investment program for Ukraine, which I am, of course, in favor of. But why would Trump ever sign it?
And the idea was this would make things more peaceful because the United States would be invested in Ukraine and so obviously wouldn't want Russian invasions, basically, right?
Yeah. It's a very nice sounding theory. However, at the start of the full-scale invasion, there was at least one port that was being operated by a Chinese company. And guess what? The Russians still bombed them. And the Russians are much closer with the Chinese than they are with the Americans.
Anyway, you know what happened next. Vice President J.D. Vance accused Zelensky of not thanking the U.S. enough. An activist posing as a reporter accused Zelensky of not wearing nice enough clothes. And eventually, President Trump himself accused Zelensky of disrespecting the United States of America in its cherished Oval Office. The mineral rights deal was off. Here in the U.S., the reaction from most observers was horror. The whole thing looked like a setup, a chance to dress Zelensky down in front of cameras and flex a cartoonish dominance. In Ukraine, Romeo says, the reaction was a little different.
People were watching, and the overwhelming sense afterwards was betrayal of being stabbed in the back. There's actually a bunch of new Ukrainian political cartoons that literally depict Zelensky in Ukraine being stabbed in the back by Trump. So that's the general takeaway, I think, for most people. For me personally, to be honest, I feel a little bit more positive after the Oval Office meeting than I was feeling before that.
Hold it, why?
Because I think Zelensky accomplished the diplomatic goal he set out to accomplish.
Which was?
To show Europe who Trump was and to remove any illusions that Trump is a figure that can be negotiated with or that can be relied upon to act in a reasonable manner.
Today on the show, what our new regime in Washington looks like from Ukraine and what that means for any potential peace process. I'm Mary Harris. You're listening to What Next? Stick around.
Planned Parenthood Federation of America exists so that all people can get access to the sexual and reproductive care and education they need to make informed decisions about their health. More than 2 million patients a year rely on the services Planned Parenthood health centers provide, like STI testing and treatment, birth control, gender-affirming care, abortion, cancer screenings, and so much more. Right now, all across the country, reproductive health care and rights are under attack from public officials who are out of step with the will of the vast majority of Americans. The constitutional right to abortion, control of our bodies, and the health care we need has been stolen from us. And now politicians in 47 states, yes, 47, have introduced bills that would block people from getting the sexual and reproductive care they need. Planned Parenthood knows that equitable access to health care, including safe, legal abortion, is a human right. Right now, Planned Parenthood needs your help to protect access to health care. Donate today by visiting PlannedParenthood.org/protect.
Get the Angel Reese special at McDonald's now. Let's break it down. My favorite barbecue sauce, American cheese, crispy bacon, pickles, onions, and a sesame seed bun, of course. And don't forget the fries and a drink. Sound good? Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
At participating restaurants for a limited time.
How would you characterize the state of the war right now? I mean, we're 3 years in. I tend to talk to you like right around anniversaries. Where are things?
I mean, they're a little better than they were last year, I would say. So if I was to take just the current moment, as of today, Ukraine is making advances on the battlefield. We're pushing the Russians back. One of their massive assaults that they've been pumping for at least 4 months, if not longer, into a town called Toretsk has failed. They've been pushed back. We're pushing them out of the outskirts of Toretsk. We're liberating villages around another hotspot, Pokrovsk. So on the battlefield, we're doing quite well. Diplomatic front, obviously, this is a different story.
I mean, you sound so optimistic, but my understanding is that Russia controls like 20% of Ukraine, a big chunk.
But they have not been able to capture a single provincial capital, except for Kherson, since the start of the full-scale invasion.
But this stalemate, if we're going to accept that's what it is grinding with lots and lots of Ukrainians dead and Russians and now North Koreans, right? And it's $66.5 billion of invested military money from the U.S. It's just so much is going into this.
Yeah, that's how industrial war works. I mean, why do you think they called it total war during World War II? Because war between industrial powers, that's how it goes, because industrial powers can make a lot of guns, a lot of stuff, and make it very difficult to gain ground, to make offensives. Plus, we have now the dronification of war that's completely changing every single thing we knew about strategy and tactics up. So, yeah, it's a grinding conflict, and these conflicts are always going to be grinding conflicts. There is no way around that.
What kind of toll has it taken on Ukrainians? Like, I was looking at some data basically saying a third of Ukrainians are now open to territorial concessions. Like, they're just, the sense is like, please make this end for some people.
Yeah.
Is that what you're seeing?
That's absolutely a sense. That's absolutely, I wouldn't say this is a majority of views or even a plurality of views, but it is a growing view. I think even the number is a little higher than a third now. I think it's creeping up to 40-something% because, yeah, people are really tired. Like, well, what's the toll? You've watched your neighbors, sometimes your own house, get blown up. Constantly, the Russian attacks, especially in the last few months, have intensified. We're now seeing mass attacks that they would usually only do, like they could only sustain for a few weeks during the winter to target our power systems. Now we see these massive attacks multiple times per day. And now that we will not be able to restock on Patriot missiles, that even degrades our ability to intercept their ballistic missiles. And all of these attacks, they go towards the rear. They kill civilians.
Yeah. I think you've lost friends.
What, a number of them? Reporters Without Borders just released an investigation into the death of a close friend and colleague of mine, Victoria Rushna, and she was tortured to death in Russian captivity. And yeah, people are tired.
So when Donald Trump came to office saying he wanted to resolve the situation in Ukraine, was there any group of people you were hearing from who were like, well, let's see how this goes? Because this war has taken such a huge toll on us physically, personally, structurally in Ukraine.
Honestly, what I was seeing was that the majority of media outlets in Ukraine were, in fact, optimistic that Trump would be able to end the war this year. There was that hope that as a quote-unquote deal maker, which has got to be one of the best PR coups anyone's ever pulled off in history, let me tell you. But that reputation really preceded him largely because Ukrainians had gotten real tired of Biden. He was seen to be more interested in, what was the phrase I used last time, managing escalation than pursuing justice. So it was absolutely, I wouldn't say this kind of fervent hope, but it was a comforting belief that people could hold and really try to sell, that Trump was going to come in and he would cut a deal with Russia and maybe it wouldn't be completely comfortable for us. But surely he's still American. Russia's still America's enemy. Surely he would understand that Ukraine has a voice and deserves something.
I get the sense that after what happened in the Oval Office, the sentiment has shifted.
So the working class Ukrainians seem to have taken this whole kind of blow up at face value. Like they watch Trump and Vance bully Zelensky. They watch Zelensky try to defend himself in a language that he does not know that well. He's been practicing, but we can still, obviously he is not a fluent or native speaker. And they, of course, felt defensive about Ukraine, about Zelensky. However, from a lot of the kind of media people, the government people that I've spoken to, they think that maybe, and again, for me, this is a very much a wishful viewpoint. It is not representative of reality. But they still thought that maybe if Zelensky just let Trump speak and then just refuted him in a press conference afterwards or something, we might have signed the deal. But again, I really think it's wishful thinking.
Yeah, this is a split I saw in the U.S. too. People saying like, oh, Zelensky didn't perform well because everyone knows with Trump, you just have to, stroke his ego and be as conciliatory as possible. I don't know if that was possible in this situation. It's hard to sit there and, let someone tisk you like that. I just don't know if it's a sustainable posture.
No, of course it's not. And plus, Donald Trump has never been interested in helping Ukraine in any way, shape, or form. So, so he would have sat there silently and Trump would have abused him. Vance would have abused him and he would have bowed and scraped and said sorry. And then what? They sign a mineral deal that does absolutely nothing. And then the Russians keep attacking. And then Trump goes and blames Ukraine for not wanting peace anyway, because they'll just invent some other bullshit.
Yeah. He has to worry about his domestic political reputation, too. Zelensky does.
I mean, prior to the Oval Office meeting, his approval rating, I believe, was somewhere in the 20s or 30s. After it, I think it's close to 50% approval now. One of the things, there's a lot you can criticize Zelensky for, but I think one of the things that he should be admired for is the fact that he legitimately acts like a national leader. He legitimately, when he's representing Ukraine at these diplomatic meetings, you can see that he really truly believes he is not simply himself, but he is a representative of Ukraine in microcosm. And when a supposed partner starts abusing not just you personally, but the nation that you represent, that you've been elected to represent, and the nation you've been leading under war for 3 years, I think there is no possible ethical or moral response other than at the very least pushing back.
Even now, if some kind of deal moves forward, Romeo says this is a business deal, not a peace plan. And one more thing.
I just would like to mention the minerals that are mentioned don't exist. That is...
This is all exploratory because people don't know exactly what's underneath the earth.
No, we don't. It's insane to talk about. These are theoretical minerals. So what happens if Zelensky signs a vague deal referring to theoretical minerals that can anyway only be exploited if there is a ceasefire, which Putin has no interest in pursuing? I do not know. Like, nothing happens. It's just another worthless piece of paper that's signed. Good job.
We'll be right back after a quick break.
When you check out at the pharmacy, you see the journey from idea to medicine, thanks to our intellectual property system, or IP for short. IP safeguards inventions, like a new way to prevent seizures or lower cholesterol. And IP supports competition from other brands, then lower cost generics, which are 90% of prescriptions filled in the US. Innovation, competition, lower costs, thanks to IP. Learn more at phrma.org/IP works wonders.
Your data is like gold to hackers. They're selling your passwords, bank details, and private messages. McAfee helps stop them. Secure VPN keeps your online activity private. AI-powered text scam detector spots phishing attempts instantly. And with award-winning antivirus, you get top-tier hacker protection. Plus, you'll get up to $2 million in identity theft coverage, all for just $39.99 for your first year. Visit McAfee.com. Cancel anytime. Terms apply.
Every day, thousands of Comcast engineers and technologists, like Kunle, put people at the heart of everything they create.
In the average household, there are dozens of connected devices. Here in the Comcast family, we're building an integrated in-home Wi-Fi solution for millions of families like my own. It brings people together in meaningful ways.
Kunle and his team are building a Wi-Fi experience that connects 1 billion devices every year. Learn more about how Comcast is redefining the future of connectivity at comcastcorporation.com/Wi-Fi.
After this confrontation in the Oval Office, things really shifted between the U.S. and Ukraine quickly. Like we saw President Trump earlier this week temporarily suspend the delivery of U.S. military aid to Ukraine. And then just before you and I started speaking, it was announced that the U.S. would pause intelligence sharing with Ukraine, which is important because that intelligence had been crucial for helping Ukraine target Russia, including inside Russia itself. When you hear about those breaks, what do you make of them? They seem extreme to me. They seem like real breaks that could have consequences.
They absolutely will have consequences. They'll have consequences in greater numbers of killed Ukrainian civilians. It's absolutely going to lead to that. To be honest, I don't think it'll have that much of an impact on the battlefield because, again, I'm really seeing Europe. We just saw the European Union propose an actual militarization plan that they will actually discuss and not just have in rumors or think tanks or op-eds or white papers, but an actual policy proposal for the actual militarization of the EU. So on the battlefield, I think Ukraine's European partners will be able to close a lot of the gaps, including the intelligence gaps. Maybe the intelligence that we'll get will not be as accurate or as fresh as the Americans can provide, but you have to work with what you have.
Your president has said he still wants to sign this mineral rights deal. I know you've said this will never happen. Do you think he should?
I mean, if we could rely on Donald Trump to be a fair and stable and reliable partner and ally, we wouldn't be having this conversation. We wouldn't be in this situation right now. Because if Trump was a reliable person, he simply wouldn't have proposed the mineral deal in the first place. It literally came out of nowhere. I believe the initial kind of concept of a mineral deal came from one of Zelensky's aides. But like that, we wouldn't be talking about that if Trump wasn't a transactional bully.
So one thing that we've seen this week that I think is a change is we've seen Volodymyr Zelensky lay out on social media what a possible ceasefire might look like in Ukraine. He talks about how in the first stages there could be a release of prisoners and a truce, what he calls a truce in the sky, like a ban on missiles and long-range drones and bombing of civilian infrastructure. Also a truce at sea immediately. If all that happened, do you think he'd have the support of the Ukrainian people, who you've already said are pretty exhausted at this point?
I mean, that's just that's not a question I can answer because Ukraine has no ability to end this war. The only actor, and not the US, not Europe, not even China, no one in the world has any ability to end this war or do a ceasefire or a truce. No one except for Vladimir Putin. That is the only human being who is capable of doing that. And I have yet to see him at any of these discussions, peace discussions, ceasefire discussions, because they're not interested. And if they're not interested, we can't exactly end the war.
But I guess I wonder, like, I don't get the sense that the conflict would go away for someone like you or people you live around, even if there was a piece of paper saying that the war was over.
I mean, what the war would be over when there are no Russian soldiers on Ukrainian territory. That is the long and short of it. Anything short of that is wishful thinking and or enemy propaganda. That's how things break down. If you really want to go to the lowest level of things, unless Russian troops leave Ukraine.
Well, and there's dispute over what is Ukrainian and Russian territory between Russia and Ukraine.
There's not dispute. Russia has simply conquered parts of Ukraine, but we have a norm formed after one of the most deadly and horrible wars in human history that says countries can't take territory by force. It's a norm we established specifically because of that giant war that killed millions upon tens of millions of people. I think it's a very good norm. I think that's a norm that deserves to be preserved. And if Ukraine allows for the concession of territory, that norm is gone, and we are living in a very, very dark world.
You've written so strongly about this war. You know, the last line of one of your recent op-eds was, "What price victory until every last inch of Ukraine is free and nothing less." And that is just, you've lost so much. And I can understand being exhausted at this point. So who, when you are thinking, having second thoughts about the conflict, who are you thinking of?
So my wife recently announced that she's pregnant.
Oh my gosh.
And I am now in the new, well, I would say the kind of shared millennial experience of expecting or becoming a new parent in this very chaotic time. And I'm going to be honest with you. I have no desire or intention to allow my child to grow up in a world this dark. So whatever it takes to make this a better, safer place for them to grow up in and to live and to experience, to change maybe, that's the job.
Having a kid is a hopeful act right now.
Well, my wife said something around the time when, well, not even around the time, like about 2 years ago now, I would say. And she said, "I will not allow the bastards to tell me how I can live my life," which I think is the sort of attitude that is necessary to defeat evil ideologies, to defeat fascism. It is the desire to tell the bullies to fuck all the way off. And it took her a bit of time to kind of break me down and convince me that this was something we should do. But in the end, I figured, yeah, like I I want to have my life. I want to live the life that I have expected and dreamed of. One of the most basic human possible actions of having a family. No, I'm not going to let the fascists take that away from me.
Romeo, I always love talking to you. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you so much, Mary. I'm always so happy when you guys have me on. I always love chatting with you guys as well.
Romeo Kokriatski is the managing editor of New Voice of Ukraine. He's also the co-host of the podcast Ukraine Without Hype. A quick shout out before I get out of here. On Wednesday, something pretty interesting happened at the Supreme Court. The justices ruled that, actually, Donald Trump cannot snatch away $2 billion in USAID funding. That means we're beginning to find out just how much of a king Donald Trump is going to be able to be. Anyway, I figured you would want to hear more about this. And luckily, our pals Dahlia Lithwick and Mark Joseph Stern recorded a special episode of their awesome podcast, Amicus. They're going to give you the skinny. So as soon as you're done here, go check them out. All right, that's the show. What Next is produced by Paige Osburn, Elena Schwartz, Rob Gunther, Madeline Ducharme, Anna Phillips, and Ethan Oberman. Ben Richmond is the Senior Director of Podcast Operations here at Slate. And I'm Mary Harris. Go track me down on Blue Sky if you'd like. I'm at Mary Harris. All right. Thanks for listening. Catch you back here next time.
Get the Angel Reese special at McDonald's now. Let's break it down. My favorite barbecue sauce, American cheese, crispy bacon, pickles, onions, and a sesame seed bun, of course. And don't forget the fries and a drink. Sound good? Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
At participating restaurants for a limited time.
When you think about businesses like Allbirds or Skims that are selling through the roof, sure, you think about a great product, a cool brand, and brilliant marketing. But what's often overlooked is the business behind the business that makes it all possible. For millions of businesses, that's Shopify. Nobody does selling better than Shopify, the home of the #1 checkout on the planet. With Shop Pay, you can boost conversions by up to 50%, meaning fewer abandoned carts and way more sales. Whether your customers are scrolling online, strolling through your store, or browsing social media, Shopify ensures you're ready to sell wherever they are. It's no secret, businesses that want to grow with Shopify. Upgrade your business and get the same checkout Allbirds uses. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/DAX, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/DAX to upgrade your selling today. Shopify.com/DAX.